Let me skip ahead to my book portion of what I am now calling Uchuwaru's Book Talk, where I talk to you about a book I've read at some point in the past. Maybe something I liked, something I didn't like, something I loved, just something I picked at random because I waited till the last minute to decide what I was doing. But definitely a book. And today's book is Right Ho Jeeves, also known as Brinkley Manor in the original British publication. It's one of my favorite books actually this time around. It's also a very old book. I mean, not very, well, it depends on how you define very old books. I mean, there are books that are hundreds and thousands of years old. This one is not even quite 100 years old yet. It's from 1934, so that is 92 years old, I think. I was an English major, not a math major. I mean, I can usually do basic math in my head, but if I get it wrong, sue me. So this is, of course, as you could guess from the title, if you know anything about recognize the name Jeeves, this is, of course, one of the books featuring the Jeeves and Wooster characters, with Bertie Wooster being a not particularly intelligent, but overall very nice, well, not quite aristocrat, a gentleman, of leisure, I guess to say. In other words, he was a rich dude from a wealthy background who had money but didn't have to actually work. And my God, I wish I was like that. I mean, who doesn't really? Having a lot of money and not having to work sounds great. And sure, it'd be even better if you had a valet like Jeeves. Yes, Jeeves was a valet, or gentleman's personal gentleman, not a butler. Always remember that, people. It's a common mistake. Stop making it. So anyway, like I said, Bertie, of course, was not terribly bright. Jeeves, on the other hand, was super intelligent. So Bertie would always be getting into trouble, and Jeeves would always be getting him out of it. That's the general premise for pretty much all of the stories in the series. I say pretty much because there is one story that Bertie isn't actually in where they have Jeeves working for somebody else, but I'm not talking about that one today. I'm talking about Right Ho Jeeves, which is, I think, possibly my personal favorite in the series. This one has what I think is probably the funniest scene ever written in the English language, which I'll get to that a bit later. See, this book basically starts with Bertie and Jeeves Bertie just getting back from vacation he was on with his Aunt Dahlia and his cousin Angela in Cairns, where, as I recall, she got attacked by a shark, or claimed to have been attacked by a shark anyway. Which comes in kind of important later. But anyway, he's just getting back and finding that Jeeves has been helping his old friend, Gussie Finknottle, the renowned newt lover and general idiot. I mean, most of Bertie's friends are idiots, really. But Gussie is an even bigger idiot than Bertie, I think, so. Yes, because Gussie has fallen in love with a woman named Madeline Bassett, who's, as I recall, is incredibly soppy, is probably the best way to describe her. And he's been trying to get Gussie to, basically talk to her, propose, I believe, generally. So it was what went back in those days, because, that was back in the days before dating was common, especially among the aristocracy and gentry and whatnot. I mean, I don't think any of these people were actually aristocracy. I guess they'd just be wealthy gentry types. So anyway, yeah, Jeeves comes up with a plan to have Gussie try to propose by building up confidence, because they're going to a masquerade, and he thinks that Gussie would get up confidence by dressing as Mephistopheles. It doesn't actually work because, like I said, Gussie is kind of an idiot. And that causes Bertie to forbid Jeeves from giving him any more advice, you see. Which, doesn't go over well with Gussie, but when he finds out that Madeline is going to be spending time at Brinkley Court, which is the, manor where Bertie's aunt and uncle live, Bertie gets him to go there. Not from purely altruistic means either, because his Aunt Dahlia had tried to pressure him into giving a speech to award school prizes at the local school, I think it was. And he really doesn't want to do that because, he may be an idiot, but he's not that big of an idiot that he wants to get roped into that. So he sends Gussie on his way and basically volunteers Gussie to do it instead. But then he gets word that his cousin Angela and his friend Tuppy Glossop are having problems too, because she called him fat and he doubted her story about getting attacked by a shark. And so he decides he wants to help sort it all out, so he heads there too and just makes things worse. And, eventually he comes up with a plan to help Gussie that involves getting him drunk, which he figures, in vino veritas and all that, and if he gets him drunk enough, he'll get the courage to propose to Madeline Bassett, which it works. But it also works a little too well, because this happens right before he's giving the speech to the school prizes, and this is basically what I think is the funniest scene anyone has ever written. I mean, it is just freaking hilarious. He basically goes on a tear, insults his host, insults Bertie, insults everybody, and naturally Madeline is flabbergasted by this and ends up dropping him, and ends up, as I recall, getting engaged to Bertie instead, because he had accidentally proposed to her earlier in the book, and things just get worse and worse, and finally Jeeves solves everything, as always happens in these books. In fact, I really love the series. In fact, I love pretty much all of Wodehouse's books. These are great, and the Lord Emsworth books are great. I'm sure they're old, but they are freaking hilarious. Some of the best stuff I've ever written. I mean, I personally think that he was a funnier writer than Pratchett or Douglas Adams or anybody else I ever read. He's well worth checking out. Just too bad that, he's been gone for 50 years now, so his stuff is viewed as a bit dated. Yeah, there are definitely some problems in some of the books. Definitely some racial stuff that doesn't fly quite as well anymore. But I don't recall any of that being in this book, at least. So it's definitely well worth checking out. Now, is there anybody out there watching me that has any questions or comments or concerns or anything they want to say? If there's not, if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment below.